Dude, 1986, I was 5 years old.
I was about to say, how I base how old movies are is ask JJ how old he was.
As you should. Yeah, I was 5.
5. JJ was all, at 5.
Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts, Mattson.
Better read than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
That's awesome. For those listening, the aviators have come out on Alec's face, and I love every second of it. I'm not going to be able to take you seriously the whole rest of this podcast.
Excellent.
Love it. All right. As always, we appreciate you guys help growing the podcast. Go ahead and hit that follow or subscribe button. Tell a friend about us. Go check out our website, whatsourverdict.com. Probably some big changes coming there. We're a lot of big changes across the board. So keep that in mind, especially since this is the last episode of May. So yeah, look for some changes. We're going to be doing a lot of TV. Might not see movies every Monday, but you will have an episode every Monday. But we're going to do a lot of TV with all the TV stuff coming out and continue to do big movies. It'll be fun, but watch out for those changes. The question we always ask is if you ever find yourself wondering if you spend the time, money, or both on a movie, each week we put a movie on trial. To help with that question, each week we're going to put a movie on trial, discuss the facts, pass judgment, or let you know our verdict. Today, we are reviewing Top Gun. It was released May 16th, 1986. It was written by Jim Cash and Jack Epps. It was directed by Tony Scott. It stars Tom Cruise, Anthony Edwards, Kelly McGillis, Val Kilmer, Michael Ironside, and Tom Skerritt. Codename Maverick, Pete Mitchell, and Impetuous. Daredevil, Navy pilot Ace is accepted into Top Gun, Miramar's elite fighter school. But there, the impulsive young pilot will have to compete with the best of the best, as well as his family name. I would normally give a spoiler review, like spoiler warning here, but if you haven't seen this, then stop listening to our podcast because we can't be friends. No, I'm just kidding. Keep listening, but...
No, we cannot be friends. Yeah. This came out in 1986. This was before I was born.
Shut up.
If you have not seen this movie...
They're probably Russian.
If you...
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah, so I'm not going to give that spoiler deal. If you haven't seen it, just listen because you are missing out.
Yeah, when this movie first came out, it was the VHS tape. You should have seen this movie.
Dude, when this movie came out, movies didn't hit VHS for like a year and a half after they left theaters. Like, dude, 1986, I was 5 years old.
I was about to say, how I base how old movies are is ask JJ how old he was.
As you should. Yeah, I was 5.
5. JJ was all, at 5.
I'm pretty sure that this movie, the first time I saw it, I was like 7 or 8 years old. And we were living in Ohio. And we had one of those big box TVs that like looked like someone built a mantle around your TV.
Yeah.
It was huge. We watched it on VHS. And I was young enough, like I was just at that cusp to where like where the sex scene happens and like my dad like puts his hand over my face and I'm like, come on, Dad. Jesus.
Hey, they really did use some liberal amount of tongue because most Hollywood scenes these days, you don't go for that because that's intimate stuff. But
it was just straight lick right up the throat, bro.
I know.
That's why
I've been covering my throat for days because Oshi's been trying it.
That's funny. Well, that's that. Like what they made like the movie that made fun of this, the satire of Top Gun that had 2 movies, Hot Shots. They did that, and like there was a sex scene in Hot Shots, like where the whole thing was them just like licking each other like crazy, like disgustingly, and I was like, oh god, it's so funny. But Top Gun was my jam, dude. Like it was one of my favorite movies for my whole life, pretty much. I love Top Gun.
All right, so as we heard in Blade, what young JJ enjoyed about it versus what old JJ really feels about it now, I have been waiting to hear the differentiation because having watched this with an objective eye with the newer movies, I have my opinions on it now. Well, spoiler, everyone still liked it. Let's not go that far. But I really am curious to see JJ's more like objective hat and what you would say then and now.
Yeah, for sure. There are some serious nostalgia glasses that come on with Top Gun. I won't lie about that. Like my view of this movie is very skewed to what it would be because there is a lot of nostalgia there. But I won't lie and say that this is like a cinematic marvel. It's not. Now, I will say that I like the things that I have a hard time with are very different than what I have a hard time with in Blade. Blade is Blade, but the CGI was so bad. Mm-hmm. And the ending was just really weird and forced and didn't fit with the rest of the tempo and the narrative of the movie. With this one, there's a lot of shit that just doesn't make sense because at the time, movies being longer weren't a good thing back then. Like in the 80s, they didn't put up with 2-hour movies, like or 2.5-hour movies. Like you were lucky to get an hour and 45 minutes, and people thought that was too much time for a movie. So this one being an hour and 50 minutes was like the longest you could get without people going, this is bullshit back then. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of rushed things for this movie. And they,
you think like graduating Top Gun, like, oh, actually you guys are going to fight. You're the best we've got. Cause there's not like people from that passed that class 6 years ago, 10 years ago that are more experienced. Actually, you're going.
Yeah. We got some MIGs out there. We're going to send you right now. Like they're just most recent graduates and not just, one set of them, the whole fucking team.
Yeah. And one that just had his partner die, hasn't flown for 2 weeks and may be a flight risk. No worries.
Yeah. No, we're good. But I think for me, the biggest letdown watching it, and I've never noticed it to the extent that I did this time, is the glossing over of Maverick's, I don't want to say childhood, but childhood trauma of his dad and like the family name. Like they mention it a dozen times in this movie. Like there's even the big long conversation with Tom Skerritt where he talks about how his dad didn't do it wrong. And he saved everybody, but it happened on the wrong side of the border. And so it was denied and he made mistakes. So it's like, you get this explanation, but I want to see more of the trauma and the reason that he does. They hint at it, but they don't actually lean into it. And I think this movie would be better now if they leaned into that. And I'm hoping that they lean into some of that traumatic events that are happening with this new one, because I think the writing is what this movie suffers from a narrative perspective. The action's fantastic because they did everything. All the effects are actual planes and jets, and they were in the cockpits, and the Air Force really supported them in these movies. That all of these effects were great. There was nothing visually that I could complain about other than the grainy 80s version. Even no matter how much repurposing you do of HD, it still looks like an 80s movie. But like everything else, it looks great. The soundtrack's bar none. I mean, it's one of the greatest soundtracks ever written. And it's amazing. So it's great. But I think from a story perspective, everything's like pushed to the side so that the action and the flying and the crashes and the missiles and all that stuff.
Forget the volleyball game.
Oh, yeah,
come on.
The very homoerotic volleyball game, which in the 80s was taboo, I guess.
I don't know, JJ. You tell us.
Fair enough. I mean, certainly different viewpoints of homosexuality back in the 80s. No question about that. And as an older man, like, I wish I could play volleyball and look like that. I can't even
watched this movie for the volleyball scene.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But especially like,
I would love to be that tan.
What's the thing? Did he slider? You stink. Like, but when he's like, just yelling and flexing and shit, I'm like, dude, I wish I had ever in my life been able to do that and be like, oh, look at the muscles. Like, they're all sweaty and hot and sexy. I get it. They're all over 6 feet except for Tom Cruise.
Yeah, little shorty,
little 5'7".
So I want to say something that for me, having watched this movie, and I've seen Top Gun a few times, I quite like this movie. I mean, having rewatched it, it's hard not to like it. I mean, the music. One of the things I wanted to say, Val Kilmer, was he an actor? Was he? Why am I thinking he's saying like he was an R&B artist for some reason? I'm probably who am I thinking of?
Oh, he's always been
Vanilla
acting.
Ice. That's
that's what I always. No, but it's funny. Like when I first watched, that's why. Like when I first watched this movie, I was like, that's Ice. Yeah, and then so he's not, which is good for me to remember. I really liked his character, and he wasn't in the movie quite often, but when he was in the movie, he's really good, in my opinion. Who was not that good for me is Tom Cruise. I've seen him in so much more. Like I thought he was pretty bad, to be honest. Like, his developed so much. Again, he was so young then, and he kind of grew into it later. Not up to Tom Cruise standards, in my opinion, having seen him in like the new Mission Impossible movies where he just kills it. For me, complete opposite, where he was stale, not very, the emotional depth that I've expected from him and I've come to have seen just hasn't been there in Top Gun in this rendition. But this movie was kind of slow. I actually was talking to JJ outside of the podcast a little bit. That's the thing that I felt the most is when the action was on screen and those things are present, awesome, phenomenal. But it was the things in between getting to that action that at times felt drawn out, that like him at the bar scene trying to figure it out after his friend dies, and then ultimately figuring out, talking to his, whatever you call the Top Gun instructor and going through that. I understood the purpose of it, but man, like that part, like it just kind of drug on for me. And I felt it when I was watching. I was like, ooh, like I was feeling that 150 hour and 50 minute run time, where if it was like an hour and 30, I think this movie would have been top notch even to this point. But I felt the weight of the length, and some of the acting just wasn't where I would expect the star power to be that was in that particular movie. But beyond that, I mean, this movie stacks up still today. It's a movie that I could turn on, the music, the visuals. I think JJ's right. And it made me honestly think of a movie like Jurassic Park, where actual physical effects, and there's an actual, what's that terminology called in movies? It's
practical
effects. There we go. You can't beat it. And that's one thing I am curious to see with this new Top Gun is there going to be practical? Is it all going to be CGI planes? Which probably going to be CGI planes.
It's practical. They've been working with the Air Force again.
And I already know it then. I already know what I'm going to go see this weekend is going to blow me away visually, because I would notice a difference if it was, because we have seen movies with planes that they're just not, it's not the same. It's just not.
Yep.
And I think that's what I like about this movie the most is those practical effects really just keep it real for me. Mm-hmm. And it feels believable, and it feels what they're doing is risky. And I feel like I'm in the cockpit, that stuff's going down. And that's what I really appreciate about this movie. While it wasn't the best written movie, the best acted movie, it felt real. And it felt like something that I was a part of.
I'm with you. I think part of what caused what you're talking about with Tom Cruise, because he wasn't even that Tom Cruise. You think about, I don't know if you guys have seen him, but I'm sure Alec has, because he has a thing for older movies, even though it's not that old. But like Risky Business, the football one that I cannot think of the name of, which is stupid. Where
Jerry Maguire?
No, where he was a running back in high school.
Oh, I have not seen that.
All the Right Moves. So like you have all these movies, and then like you have Rain Man, you have all these movies where he's younger and he's great. He's just as good then as he is now. But the difference is the writing, the dialogue in this movie. And I think what frustrated me this time watching it, because I've never watched it from a critical perspective. I've always watched it from this is one of my favorite movies of all time. And the focus of his story is all wrong. We're so focused on the love story. So here I go again. This is the JJ edit, because I don't like Kelly McGillis either that much. And I don't love the love story between the two of them. It didn't work for me. It never has, ever. It's always just awkward and weird and doesn't make sense. I liked the bar scene where he tries, but I don't think that it should have progressed beyond he made a mistake of trying, realized she was a civilian instructor, and then they just become friends, and they work together in that fashion. I just don't like the love story past the failed attempt at the bar. It just doesn't work for me. And I think if they could have gotten rid of that, and as opposed to having every time they're on screen together, it being about them flirting and being sweaty in an elevator together, it was just weird as shit. Instead of that, have it be about Tom Cruise's dad. Because what people don't realize, and what I didn't realize even until watching this, is that beside the fact that Goose dies, 2 O's in Goose, fellas, besides the fact that Goose dies and it's his best friend, that emotional hit is there. But it also immediately ties into the fact that the reason he can't get over it is because he has become, in his mind, his dad. He messed up. He did something wrong. But you don't get that tie-in immediately. You have to have it force-fed to you on a platter by the commander at the end going, your dad didn't mess up. And then he goes, oh, okay, I can graduate because I wasn't in the wrong and I didn't mess up because my dad didn't. So I'm not following in that family. So I just wish that they would have written it more about Maverick has an issue and he's stupid and does bad things, makes bad decisions because he needs to be successful at all times. And they get there at the end, but there's a whole middle section that you're talking about, Mattson, that when they're not in a plane or it's not Val Kilmer in a towel, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a cheesy 80s movie without the love story, JJ.
That's fair.
They would have been way too far ahead of their time if they cut that out.
Also
That's
fair.
a necessity.
You're not wrong. The movie wouldn't have been as successful if it didn't have that weird-ass love story romance in it.
Yeah, I think for me, it was the fact that, Maverick's supposed to be kind of this aloof, devil-may-care attitude, and we see a little bit of that. Problem is that he's sharing the screen with Val Kilmer, who does it so much better. And so Maverick almost appears to be like this petulant child when compared to Iceman. And it's just like, I'll fight with Val Kilmer all day. Absolutely. Yeah. He got that cocky smile and he's got the devil-may-care attitude, but he does it by the rules. And so even though Maverick's kind of supposed to be the cool, edgy outlier, it feels just wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that contributes a little bit, for me anyway, to Tom Cruise just kind of not really being Tom Cruise like he is in the other movies.
Yeah. I will say that Val Kilmer had a moment, though, where I was like, and that was after Goose dies when they're in the locker room and he's like crying, I guess, or trying not to cry. Like, it's so painful to watch that scene that I actually usually try to find something else to do to distract me because that scene is so bad. And that one's from Val Kilmer. Like, it's just like the whole, the deep breaths he takes and I'm like, oh, that's terrible. But other than that, Val Kilmer's killer in this movie. Love it. Got a story for you talking about Val Kilmer. So when I lived in Arizona, I also would spend a lot of time in, why can't I think? It's on the other side of the canyon there. And it's where all the big rocks are, the rock formations and the crystal crunchers. We all live there. It's like hippie town, man. Why can I not think of the name of this city in Arizona? Anyway, we were out there quite a bit in this town. It'll come to me as I'm telling this story. And one of the guys we would spend a lot of time with there was a personal trainer to the stars in the early 2000s and then the late 90s and whatnot. He did a lot of personal training. So we would go over to their house for dinner. The rest of us would be eating. His wife was Samoan and she would feed us piles of food. And I was like, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. Cause we would eat there 3 times a week because they were the coolest. So she would feed us just food and tons of food. And he'd be over there eating a 8-ounce sirloin. And that was it, plain with salt and pepper. I'm like, dude, you poor bastard. But he was ripped, great shape. So he did a lot of work with a lot of stars, but he was Val Kilmer's guy in the late 80s, early 90s, and the early aughts. So he would talk about Val Kilmer. Walking to his house, he's got this wall with all the stars, and he's got pictures of him and Val Kilmer all over the place. And he used to tell this story. Now, look, this is coming from a third party. I don't know how much truth it is, but he would say that Val Kilmer hated Top Gun. And I don't know, how, again, I'm sure, it made Val Kilmer, so he can't hate it that much. But he always used to tell this guy used to say that he would tell him, Val Kilmer would say it was his least favorite movie. He didn't like acting with Tom Cruise. It was just this, it was really funny to listen to the stories, but it was really cool. I won't lie. It was really cool to go to this guy's house and see him in this picture with Val Kilmer in the flight suit from Top Gun. And I was like, oh shit, that's dope. So it was really cool to hear his stories, but apparently Val Kilmer's favorite movie to make at the time, now this was 2001, was, The Red Planet at that time, which is also an interesting, strange movie. But Sedona, Arizona, that's where this guy lived. He's a huge house in the middle of Sedona, Arizona, which is a beautiful place.
The only other movie I remember Val Kilmer in is Doc Holliday, when he played Doc Holliday in Tombstone. Yeah.
I'm your Huckleberry. I love Val Kilmer. It should be interesting to see if it's just a picture in this new movie or if he's actually going to be something other than a picture. I know he's got some serious health issues, so.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's got some health stuff, and he's born in 59, so he's getting up there. He's early 60s.
Oh, yeah. He and Tom Cruise are both. They're not spring
Old
chickens.
farts.
Yeah,
Well, one looks super young. The other looks like they've been through a meat grinder.
wow, yeah. Yeah, the health issues definitely didn't help him. But yeah, Tom Cruise is 62, so he's what, 60 years old now? It's crazy to think about it now.
So I have a question.
Okay.
And this comes from watching films now from a more critical eye because I have to talk about them on a super fancy podcast.
Should have ruined you.
But, yeah, but what did Merlin do wrong? That's what I want to know. Because he was partnered with Cougar at the beginning and Cougar had his like breakdown. And so poor Merlin's back there thinking he's going to die. And then Maverick, when he comes back after losing his partner, they pair him up with Merlin. Like, what did this poor bastard do to piss off the guy in charge? Because then Tom Cruise has the same thing that Cougar went through where he freezes. And I was like, what did Merlin do? I mean, he showed up to work. He did his job. And apparently that wasn't good enough because he was just the guinea pig or the most expendable pilot they had. Like, poor dude, man.
Yeah, he wasn't even the most expendable pilot. He was the most expendable Rio. Like, he's just like, yeah, here you go, man.
I guess he just, are they just trying to get him to quit?
Maybe.
This is the Air Force's version of, managing somebody out. Just pair him with everybody who's going through tough times.
I guess. I mean, it's Tim Robbins, so.
So that's what I thought about when I was watching. I was like, poor Merlin, man. That guy didn't do anything.
I think the concept of Rio, those are funny. I guess, their Rio stands for a radio incept officer. Didn't know that till I looked it up. And I just feel bad for them because they're just like wannabe pilots. And in Top Gun, they're effectively just dudes that look back and forth as planes fly by. Like, where are they? Where are they? Yeah. It's over there. 6 o'clock.
Well, and it's so funny too, because like they wouldn't actually be doing like that window swinging thing that much. Like they might do it, right? But they won't do it that much because their whole job is to read the radar. So if they're not looking at the radar, they're not doing their jobs correctly. And another funny story about Merlin, since we went there, and Rio's. So pilots and people in the jets can't be any taller than 6'4". Like that's their maximum height is 77 inches because they won't fit any other way. Tim Robbins is 6'5", almost 6'6". So he actually wouldn't be able to fly in a fighter
That's
jet.
what it was. He was too tall. He got in on a technicality. And so they stuck him with everybody hoping to get him out.
Yep, that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it.
I want to read this post from Cora that I just looked up. Stu Anderson, old gentleman out there. I want to give you some props because this is a great paragraph right here. So he's answering the question, what does a Rio do in a fighter jet? Now, let me read this, ladies and gentlemen. This is a solid paragraph right here. In the Navy, a Rio basically controls everything except fly the airplane. Although some Air Force pilots' aircraft have flight controls fore and aft. The Rio, runs the radar and assorted avionic weapon systems, watches for bad guys, reads the checklist, watches out for bad guys, keeps track of where we are, tries to keep the pilot calm, and watches out for bad guys, and collects when everything is going to hell and watches for any bad guys. In the Navy, as I understand, they also feeds the pilot little, in quotations, sugar calls, like, looking good there, Ace. I think you're about to get us down to where our beds are, Ace. Sorry, I'm going to keep going. When Mr. I'm cool because I'm a pilot is trying to wrestle the aircraft back to the flight deck, pitching and rolling and such with the ship on a dark and stormy night during blue water ops. These Rios are also known as Jib, guy in black, or in some circles as Goose, guy operating other seat equipment. Great paragraph. Stu Anderson out there in the internet. Way to go.
That was a great paragraph. I love that.
So that's where Goose got his name?
Yeah, I was going to say, apparently that's where Goose got his name.
Honestly, that probably is why he was named Goose. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Which was kind of a joke in and of itself, him being, as he makes fun of himself in this movie. But
dude, he's my favorite character. It's funny because when I was a kid and I watched this movie, not before I was a teenager and then early teenager, like I wanted to be Goose more than I wanted to be Maverick because Goose was just funny as balls and he was married to Meg Ryan. So how do you go wrong?
Wave to the birdie.
And I did, seriously, some of the quotes in this movie are just, I love it. He's like, we. I'm sorry, we. It's just, and then he's like, later on, he's like, we were, and he's like, thank you. We were flipping in the, I'm sorry, I hate it when it does that.
Should I read another good paragraph about just, dude, there's people roasting these guys and these Rios in the back seat. So this is a comical answer, but this person says the rear seat is used by the entertainment officer. It's his job to make sure the pilot still looks great for the next photo opportunity. He also operates the microwave, passing the coffee and donuts forward to the alpha, aka the pilot, the main man. He's also supposed to deal with the electronics, as the front seater will be too busy admiring himself in the mirror and dreaming up cool stories in the bar to tell later about how he saved the world, the mission, the plane, the 20 girl guides, a puppy, etc. But he still managed to look great in his leather flight jacket.
That's hilarious.
The internet, you win today. Good job.
Well, I'm telling
Absolutely.
you, it usually does. Yeah, I will say that the quotability of Top Gun is pretty high up there too. Like Casey and I still to this day use, somebody will ask each other a question. We're like, negative, Ghost Rider. The pattern is full. Like, that's like one of our, I say it all the time.
It's funny because I always forget the second part of that phrase, because I do say negative, Ghost Rider, but I always forget the second part, and I never remember I attribute it to Top Gun, because that's where it comes from.
Yep. Yeah, and Casey always laughs because she forgets the pattern is full all the time too. Like, I'll ask and she'll be like, negative, Ghost Rider. And I'll kind of sit there and look at her all expectantly, like, look, if you're going to quote it, finish the fucker, okay? You can't leave half of it off. The pattern's full. That's why it's a negative, bitch.
It just doesn't come as naturally a second part, but like, I have a need for speed. That's easy.
For speed. That one, I love. My favorite line in that whole, seriously, in the whole movie is in the bar when he's like, they're setting the terms of the bet. And he's like, you must have carnal knowledge on the premises with a woman this time. When he looks at her, he goes, Goose, you see right there, 12 o'clock, that love, she's lost that love and feeling. And he's like, no, she hasn't, Maverick. And he's like, oh no, she has. Then he leaves. I hate it when she does that. Like, that's like that line where he gets all pissed and just, I hate it when she does that, is my favorite line in this whole movie, just because it makes me laugh every single time I watch. I've probably watched this movie 500 times and I still laugh just as hard. Oh yeah.
No, you have not watched it 500 times.
He has 10 more years than us to have watched it, Mattson.
Yeah. No way you've watched it 500 times. No way you've watched it 75 times.
Guarantee it. Dude, I wore out a DVD. And that's after I wore out 3 VHSs when I was a child.
How does one watch a movie that much?
Dude, it was on all the time. Like, all the time in my house.
What are you, like an eternal 7-year-old that's watching like Blue's Clues? Well, that's probably.
Well, I'm talking like about over 5. The course of, I think, like I said, I think it was 7 or 8 the first time I watched it. And from the first time I watched it, like my dad used to get pissed because I would come home and be like, Top Gun. And we put Top Gun in. And I'd sit down and watch it.
Dad, put it up. What's the plane?
Pretty much.
Dad, please.
Pretty much. And then like all my friends would be like, well, we haven't seen Top Gun. Well, fuck that. Let's go. And we'd watch Top Gun at my house in my big cabinet TV. And then as an adult, like, they'd be like, what do we want to watch? I don't know. There's nothing on. Fuck it, Top Gun. Yeah. I wore out a DVD.
I think the movie, what movie have I even watched over 10 times? I don't even think there is a movie for me that I've watched more than 10 times.
I mean, it is me you're talking about.
I know, but I
watch God knows like 10 times a week.
Alec said he watches Casablanca like once every 3 weeks. I'm sorry for his retinas over there. Like, help the man. We live in color.
It's like the greatest movie ever.
It's actually easier on the retinas than the other movies nowadays.
Yeah, whatever. Like, man, I love Braveheart more than anyone probably on this earth, or The Patriot, but I think I've only seen those collectively together probably like 12, 13 times.
Yeah.
I watched The Patriot like 10 times in a month because in college we only had one movie and it was The Patriot.
I'm sorry.
When did you go to college? Like,
it was when we first moved in.
Did you go to college in like Iran or something?
No, we just hadn't gone to Walmart to buy any more movies yet. So we watched Patriot.
Friggin' Alex out there in like the middle of the
really
desert.
Simple, I'm really simple. Hey, I don't need much.
I love it. I just couldn't.
TV, movie. I watch it all the time.
I'd have watched anything other. I'm not a big fan of the Patriot, so
don't hate on that way. This podcast won't be hijacked. I promise our listeners. No. But one day I'll defend that movie's honor. You son of a bitch,
yikes, dude! I tell you, you might want to think about making us watch that movie. I will not be nice to it. But
there's a lot in that movie that doesn't make sense, but I love it still.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, I love Top Gun. Like I said, I watched it. I'm serious. Like I could probably sit down and quote 3/4 of the movie in order. There's little lines and shit I wouldn't get, but like I could probably get you through the majority of the movie word for word. Like it's when they pull up, when he goes to save Merlin and what's his face, when he pulls up and he's like, hey guys, you seen an F-16 around here? And he's just like, what's his name? He's just looking all frantic and freaking sweating his balls off. And Hollywood's like, Merlin's like, he's losing it, man. Yeah, I love that part. But that's probably the first line-ish that I know. And then it just goes from there. Because then it's like, go back to the commander and the bald commander on the captain of the ship. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I got a problem. Cougar and Merlin were number 1. You were number 2. Cougar's out. Now you're number 1. I got to send you to Miramar. He's just like pissed.
You're going to get your wish.
Yeah. Well, and I'm like, in my head, every time I watch it, I'm like, there's got to be somebody else from another freaking carrier. Like, you cannot,
literally anybody else.
Cannot be the only pilot and Rio group that's worthy.
Well, if you were doing like, what do they call those? Like, this is how it really is or something. You cartoonify Top Gun. You'd have all the other fighter pilots like following the objective, doing the army shiz. And then you've got like Maverick, they'd like pan out to some little cartoon, like loop-de-loop plays, like, and he's like, yeah, get the bad guys. I'm inverted. Look at this. He's like, yeah. That's exactly what Maverick would come across like.
Oh, for sure. Not to mention like the amount of like insubordination that Maverick has on his record at this point. Like he would not be in the Navy still. Like this dude would have been court-martialed and booted a long time ago.
The first time he got coffee on the flight director or whatever up in the tower, they'd be like, send this dude home.
One of your fly boys buzz my tower. I want some butts. Love it. It's a great line. For all you coffee drinkers out there, I hope that you protect your coffee. You just never know when you're going to get buzzed. Negative Ghost Rider. The pattern is full. All right, with that, let's rate this son of a bitch. Alec, why don't you kick us off, buddy?
Happy to, JJ. So I really like this movie. I think one of the most enjoyable parts for me is the interaction between Goose and Maverick, especially when they're in trouble. I got a guy I work with where we do the same exact thing. We'll be like, not exactly getting yelled at, but kind of, on the hot seat, be like, hey, did you really say that? Yeah. Okay. Where it's like just the back and forth banter. So I relate to this like immensely, and it's super fun, really fun movie. I could watch it and not really pay attention to it, but still enjoy the entire thing. And so for entertainment and everything, you can easily rewatch this a ton of times and not get bored. I'm going to go with a 4.
Nice. All right, Mattson.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the review you've been waiting for. I'm going to give it people are going to hate me for this.
Probably.
3.5.
Boo!
I'm going to give it a 3.5. It's slow, not the best acted movie, certainly not the best written movie, but man, throw it all out the window. Are you going to watch it anyways and keep watching it? I mean, absolutely. And that's the score I would give. If we're putting it on par with other movies and where we're going to rate it, I don't feel bad about it. But is it a 3.5 that I feel confident that I'll enjoy watching again with other people and I know they'll like it too? Yes. Where there's a lot of 3.5s out there that it's a one-time watch and you just kind of move on. You're like, I watched it. Wasn't bad. Wasn't great. Not going to turn back to it. Top Gun's just got that it feeling, and it carries that nostalgic feeling that you just can't scrub off. Even me, that I didn't even see it till many years later that it came out, but it just something about real planes, danger, Navy. My apologies. Let's not start a rivalry there. Insubordination, good-looking people on screen, volleyball, music.
I was going to say, don't forget Kenny Loggins.
One-liners. Put it together, and what do you get? Top Gun. Not the best movie out there. Certainly not the worst, but an enjoyable movie nonetheless.
Definitely. Though, are you even American? Jesus, 3.5. This guy. No, look. If I'm rating it from JJ perspective only, I'd give this thing a 5. But rating it from a movie perspective, there are issues with the movie. I recognize that. I always have, no matter how much I love it. It's not the perfect movie. I'm going to give it a 4 with Alec. I think there's a lot of things that are so right with it that it just, you can overlook. I've never watched a movie, even to this day, that I can overlook the problems as much as I can with Top Gun. That might be from the fact that it's just been one of my favorites from the time I was a kid. It might just be that there's just so much that's enjoyable, no matter how weird and ridiculous and goofy this movie is at times. It's just fun. And obviously, like I said, I've watched it a lot. And if you were to give me the choice to say, hey, we're going to watch Top Gun, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's go. Like, there's never a moment that I would be like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to watch Top Gun. Like, I will always watch it every time. No questions asked. And I can't think of many other, if any other movies that I feel that way about. So this is one of those, but I'm going to give it a 4 realistic score for me. Man, it's just so much fun. It's entertainment in one of its purest forms to me. So even regardless of the things that I don't love about it, but yep. Top Gun. Cannot wait for Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, Friday. Going to go watch that thing and just enjoy the shit out of it. I know I'm going to like it. And I'm excited because I've heard great things about the story and the acting, and it's more up to par from what some of the things that I would have loved to have seen in the first one, but it just feels so good to see Tom Cruise in a flight suit with some freaking Raptors in the background and I just cannot wait. So, yeah, looking forward to it. All right.
Mattson's in the danger zone.
That's another thing that I wore out is the soundtrack. I had and shut up, Alec. I had the cassette tape before CDs were a thing. Because I know.
I was about to say 8-track.
No. Oh, I might have had the 8-track. So my dad had like a 76 Camaro when I was a little kid, and it didn't have a tape deck. It had an 8-track player. So we had 8 tracks, but I don't think we had Top Gun soundtrack. I think by the time 86 hit, I think cassettes were out and about. But I had to buy that cassette like 3 times because I wore that sumbitch out. Berlin and Kenny Loggins, and it's just great music. Great music. All right. Well, there it is. Top Gun. We'll probably be doing a lot more movies and things like this to where we're not just doing new movies. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, hit us with what do you want us to watch, peeps? Let's hear it.
Seriously, there are very few movies now that we're kind of moving in some different directions that we're 100% tied to. Moving forward, we're going to do the big releases and things like that. And you can watch our website for that. But let us know, man. Hit us up on our website. Alec used to do it all the time. Leave us a comment on our website. Tell us what you want us to watch. Send us an email. hosts@whatsoververdict.com. We haven't told you that one in a while, so tell us what you want us to know. Mattson here is going to tell you where else you can tell us where to watch movies.
Dude, if you really want to go where it's at, your boy in the aviators over here rocking the TikTok thread like no one's business. You want some good dating advice, or maybe not good dating advice. Your date's going that bad, then turn to Alec, the man himself. But TikTok thread is off the chain. That's really where you're going to find and be able to interact with us on a daily perspective. Instagram, Facebook are just kind of building awareness around what's coming, some of our audio threads. TikTok is where the magic's really happening. So come chime into Alec with his movie trivia, just some of the fun facts. Or if you want to hear JJ and I get roasted, it happens. Will continue to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm funny, guys. I'm like super funny.
He is funny.
My mom tells me every day.
I laugh at him making fun of me all the time. Shit.
So if you want him to talk about topics or have more ammunition to make fun of us, we'll give him more content about ourselves or even himself. You want to see his hair down? check out TikTok. It's beautiful. He's combing it quite often for the ladies or whoever.
Just to show off. I don't
You
care.
also see a tiger on there. So, I mean, check us out. We appreciate it. Hit that follow, like, or subscribe button wherever you're checking us out. And obviously, come listen to wherever good podcasts are found. We love doing this. We are excited for TV. And for those of you listening to this on Monday, yes, we have finally started watching Obi-Wan. Check it out, peeps, because it's dropping like it's hot.
Yep. Can't wait. Oh, I'm excited.
JJ's staying up till 1 a.m. on Thursday just to watch it, people.
Here's the kicker. It starts at 1 a.m. So there's 2 episodes coming out. So I'm going to be up till at least 3 a.m. because I will not go to bed before I watch it.
Stupid. But you know what JJ and I are doing? Probably Alec. We are excited.
I can't even tell you how excited I am.
As JJ would say, I'm tickled.
Oh, I am tickled. I can't wait. Actually, tickled is an understatement for what I am with this one. But I won't go there. Yeah, check out Alec on his hair. I'm jealous. There's a reason I wear a hat on every episode we record. That's because I don't have that much hair except on my face. But yeah, thanks, Mattson, for telling everyone where they can find us. Thanks, Alec, for all the goofy shit you do on TikTok, even though most of it make fun of me or Mattson or yourself. It's very
I made fun of myself once or twice.
It's very self-deprecating, and I love it. And I really need to get you that video of me sitting down in my recording spot because yours is fucking hilarious. Like I watch, dunk, 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 like I laugh at that shit on a daily basis at this point because that made me giggle. So yeah, there it is. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye. Cinemagic out.